I don't know what I was expecting when I saw the text, but it definitely wasn't that. It was just an ordinary evening when everything changed. I was sitting at my desk, scrolling through the usual nonsense on my phone, when the notification popped up. Meet me at the party tonight. Don't make a scene. That was it. No context. No follow-up. Just an abrupt demand from Lisa. Lisa, my wife, though at that point, it felt weird to even call her that, had been acting strange for weeks. No warning signs, nothing I could pinpoint. But she was distant, colder, more preoccupied. If you looked at us from the outside, you'd never guess there was trouble. We had the perfect picture, two people living the American dream. But behind that picture was a house that felt more like a hotel and less like a home. We were in our 30s, married for a little over 5 years, but those years had become a blur. A comfortable blur, if you will. We still did the couple's thing, movie nights, brunches with friends, the occasional trip, but something felt off. And tonight, after reading that cryptic text, I knew whatever was off was about to reveal itself. I spent the next hour pacing around our apartment, not sure what to do. She wanted me to show up. Fine. But the lack of details, the cryptic tone of the message, it wasn't like her to leave me hanging. So, I did what anyone else in my position would do. I grabbed my coat, put on a smile that didn't fit, and headed out the door. The party was at some upscale loft downtown, an open bar kind of place, the type of thing where everyone in the room is more concerned with their Instagram story than having an actual conversation. But it wasn't the party that bothered me. It was the how and the why. Why was Lisa asking me to come without giving me any details? Why the sudden change? When I walked in, everything seemed fine at first. Music playing softly in the background, people milling around, casual chatter. Lisa was talking to some people I didn't recognize. She smiled, her eyes wide and bright. Exactly how she used to look when we first met. But there was something else, something beneath that smile I couldn't quite grasp. I caught her glance from across the room, and for a second, I thought maybe I was imagining things. But no. The moment she saw me, her smile faltered just slightly, enough to make my pulse quicken. She came over, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, as if trying to make herself heard in a crowd that had already forgotten she was there. She wrapped her arms around me, and for a split second, I felt everything return to normal. But the normality didn't last. The air felt thick, suffocating, and I realized she wasn't hugging me the way she used to. Her arms were a little too stiff, her touch a little too shallow. And when she pulled back, I could see it him. A man standing near the corner of the room, watching us with a casual grin on his face. His name was Caleb. I knew him well enough. A guy from Lisa's work who'd always had a little too much to say to her. The kind of guy who leaned in a little too close during conversations, a little too friendly when she needed help with something. The guy who always found an excuse to get near her. And suddenly, there it was, the feeling I'd been trying to ignore for months. The nagging thought that maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. She turned back to me, her eyes now darting between me and Caleb, like she was waiting for me to do something. Kyle, this is Caleb. You know him from the work thing, right? I nodded, but my smile was tight. Yeah, sure. She quickly looked back to Caleb, her face lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in a while. It wasn't the innocent kind of light, it was something else. Something that didn't belong between a married couple. That was when I knew. I wasn't just at a party. I was at a crossroads. Lisa gave me a half-hearted excuse and slipped away, leaving me standing there with a drink in my hand. Caleb kept glancing over, the look on his face one that seemed too familiar. My heart sank as I tried to process what was going on. I had suspected something, but this was worse. And as if on cue, Lisa's voice echoed through the room, calling my name to get my attention. But it wasn't the way she used to say it. It wasn't the voice I had learned to cherish. There was something behind it, something that didn't sit right. She asked me to follow her outside, her hand touching mine in a way that felt too rehearsed. I followed her out onto the balcony, the cool breeze of the night only amplifying the tension between us. What's going on, Kyle? Why are you acting like this? She asked, her tone sharp, like she was ready to defend herself before I even said a word. What's going on, Lisa? What the hell is going on with you? I shot back, my voice quiet but firm. You've been distant for weeks. And now this. She looked taken aback, as though she hadn't expected the confrontation. But then, her expression shifted, as though she had been waiting for this moment. She stepped closer, too close, her eyes locking onto mine. It's not what you think. At that moment, I realized something that shook me to my core. It wasn't just the party. It wasn't just Caleb. It was everything. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't a random encounter. This was a carefully constructed lie, built piece by piece. And tonight, it was all about to come crashing down. I took a breath, steadying myself. I'm not in the mood to taste your lover, Lisa. The words hit the air like a bomb. The moment the words left my mouth, the air between us seemed to crackle, charged with a tension I hadn't known was possible. Lisa's expression, a mix of shock and confusion, froze in place for what felt like an eternity. For a split second, it felt like everything around us, the noise from the party, the laughter, the music, disappeared. It was just me and her. And in that silence, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, the rush of adrenaline flooding my system. She blinked, then glanced nervously toward the door, her gaze flickering back to me. Kyle, I don't know what you're talking about. I could feel the anger rising inside of me, but I kept it in check. I wasn't going to lose control, not now, not when I was finally seeing the truth clearly for the first time. Don't play dumb, Lisa. It's obvious. The way he looks at you, the way you look at him. I've seen it before. I'm not blind. Her face reddened slightly, and for the briefest moment, I saw something in her eyes, a flash of guilt, maybe, but she quickly masked it with that practiced, easy smile. You're overthinking this, Kyle. Caleb is just a friend. Nothing more. A friend. I let out a humorless laugh. A hollow laugh that echoed in the emptiness of the balcony. A friend. That's what you're going with. She didn't respond. Instead, she glanced around, her body shifting uncomfortably as if trying to find a way out of the conversation. But there was nowhere to hide. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down, but I couldn't stop the hurt that was welling up inside me. How long had she been hiding this? How long had she been playing this game? I thought I knew my wife. I thought I trusted her. But now I wasn't sure who she was anymore. You've been pulling away from me for months, I said, my voice shaking slightly despite my best efforts to stay calm. The late nights, the phone calls, the way you act like I'm not even there anymore. You think I haven't noticed? Lisa's face softened, but only for a moment. Kyle, please. You're making it sound worse than it is. You know I love you. I'm just distracted, that's all. Distracted. That word stung more than I expected it to. It wasn't just the lack of affection. It was the emotional distance that had grown between us. I could feel it every day, in the silence at breakfast, the cold goodnight kisses, the empty conversations that didn't even make it past the surface. I had convinced myself it was just stress, work, life. But now I was seeing it all for what it really was. I stepped closer to her, not in anger, but in desperation. Don't lie to me, Lisa. Don't pretend like everything's fine. It hasn't been fine for a long time. She took a step back, her eyes shifting, her voice faltering for the first time that night. What do you want me to say, Kyle? What do you think this is going to fix? The question hit me harder than I expected. What did I want her to say? Did I want an apology? An explanation? Or did I just want to hear the truth, even if it broke me? Maybe it was the truth that had been missing all along, the thing I had been avoiding, the thing we had both been avoiding. I want to know why. I said, my voice low but steady. Why him? Why Caleb? What does he have that I don't? For the first time since this conversation began, Lisa's mask cracked. She didn't look at me with the same cold, distant gaze. Instead, there was a vulnerability there, a flicker of something real. But before she could speak, I saw him again. Caleb. He was standing at the doorway, looking straight at us, and it felt like the whole world was watching. Lisa's face turned pale. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but nothing came out. She shifted uncomfortably under the weight of the moment. She was cornered now. She couldn't run. Not anymore. I looked at Caleb, who met my eyes with an almost unsettling calmness. It was like he was daring me to do something, to make a scene, to acknowledge what had been going on between them. But I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. I turned back to Lisa, my voice barely above a whisper. Is this what it's come to, Lisa? Is this really how it ends? She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. No, Kyle. It's not like that. I never meant for you to find out like this. Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. She never meant for me to find out. Was that her excuse? Was that supposed to make it better? The realization hit me harder than any betrayal could. She had been lying to me, and I had been too blind to see it. I didn't know what to do anymore. The woman I had married, the woman I had shared my life with, was standing in front of me, and I didn't recognize her. She was someone else now. Someone I couldn't trust. Someone I couldn't even understand. I stood there in silence, staring at Lisa, then at Caleb, who hadn't moved an inch, his smug expression never wavering. My hands clenched into fists, but I didn't make a move. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. But what I did know was this. I wasn't going to be the one left in the dark. Not again. The silence between us grew unbearable, and I realized that whatever this was, this moment, this conversation, was never going to have a neat resolution. There were no easy answers. No apologies that could fix this. I took one last look at Lisa, my heart breaking, and turned to leave. But as I walked away, I could feel her eyes on me, the weight of her gaze heavier than ever. And I knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning of something much, much bigger. Something that would change everything. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The weight of what I had just learned, what I had just seen, was too much to bear. I needed space. Time to process it all. To figure out how I had missed the signs for so long. How I had been so blind to the slow unraveling of my marriage. I found myself walking aimlessly through the city streets, the cool night air biting at my skin. It felt like I was in a fog, unable to fully grasp the reality of what had just happened. Was this really happening? Was my wife, the woman I had trusted more than anyone else, betraying me? And with someone like Caleb, of all people, I still couldn't wrap my head around it. I walked for hours, my mind replaying the same scenes over and over again. Lisa's smile as she spoke to Caleb, the way she leaned in a little too close, how she acted like nothing was wrong. I remembered how she used to look at me, how she used to touch me when we talked, when we laughed. But now it was all gone, replaced by something colder, something distant. The spark that had once been there between us had fizzled out, and I hadn't even realized until it was too late. Eventually, I found myself at a small cafe, sitting alone at a table by the window. The warm glow from the streetlights outside made everything seem a little more surreal. I ordered a coffee, though I had no intention of drinking it. I needed to think, to gather my thoughts. But the more I thought about it, the more the reality set in. Lisa wasn't just distant. She wasn't just distracted. She was lying to me. And I had been too trusting, too caught up in the illusion of our perfect life to see it. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it, half expecting it to be Lisa, apologizing, trying to explain herself. But it wasn't her. It was a text from Seth, our friend who had hosted the party. "Hey man, is everything okay with you and Lisa? She seemed off after you left. Let me know if you want to talk." I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Seth had always been the level-headed one in our group, the one who kept things together when everything else felt like it was falling apart. But this was beyond any conversation. There was nothing left to say. Still, I felt the need to reply. It wasn't just for Seth's sake, it was for mine. I needed some kind of answer. I needed something that made sense in this mess of a situation. So I typed back, "It's complicated. I'll be okay. Thanks for checking in." I put my phone down, trying to focus on something, anything, that wasn't Lisa, wasn't Caleb, wasn't the broken trust one now carried with me. I couldn't think about it too much. It would drive me insane. But I couldn't help it. The thoughts just kept coming, like waves crashing against a shore, relentless and unforgiving. What was I supposed to do now? What was I supposed to say when I finally went home and faced Lisa again? The woman who, just hours ago, had kissed me like everything was normal, like nothing had changed? The woman who had slipped away, little by little, while I wasn't paying attention. I felt a tightness in my chest, and I realized I hadn't breathed properly in what felt like hours. I needed to go home. I needed answers. I needed closure, even if it meant facing the truth that I wasn't ready for. I stood up, paying for the coffee I hadn't touched, and stepped out into the night. The city seemed louder now, somehow more chaotic. I walked back to my apartment, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I reached the door, I hesitated. I had no idea what I was about to walk into. I opened it slowly, the sound of the door creaking against the silence inside. The apartment was dark, too quiet. I flicked on the light, half expecting Lisa to be sitting there, waiting for me. But she wasn't. The place was empty, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the background. I set my keys down and moved to the living room, where I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Her purse was sitting on the couch, her phone casually placed on top of it. It was like she had been in a rush to leave. I picked up her phone, an instinct I couldn't explain. I didn't plan on looking through it. I didn't want to invade her privacy. But there was something inside me that told me I had to. That there was something I still didn't know. I unlocked the phone, my hands trembling slightly. The screen lit up, revealing a string of messages from Caleb. There were no big revelations, no smoking gun. Just small talk, random conversations about work, about casual meetups. But what caught my eye was the last message, the one that was sent just a few hours ago. It was short, simple. I can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Let's make it our night. My stomach dropped. Tomorrow night? What the hell was that supposed to mean? I threw the phone down onto the couch, my mind racing. My first instinct was to confront her, to demand answers right then and there. But I knew I couldn't. Not until I had everything. Not until I understood exactly what was going on. I sat down, trying to calm myself, but the realization was sinking in fast. The woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, was gone. And in her place was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had been hiding secrets, living a life behind my back. And I was starting to see that the truth wasn't going to come easily. It wasn't going to be wrapped up neatly in a conversation. No, this was going to take time. Time I didn't have. Because now, I wasn't just questioning her actions. I was questioning everything. The next day came too fast. It felt like I hadn't slept at all, but in reality, I probably hadn't. I spent the entire night turning over everything in my mind, trying to make sense of the lies, the deceit, the little moments I had missed. It wasn't just the text from Caleb or the way Lisa had acted at the party. It was the entire picture, the slow unraveling of something I thought was solid, something I had built my life on. When Lisa finally came home, I was already waiting. The apartment was still, and I was sitting on the couch, watching the shadows play across the walls from the dim light outside. I had thought about what I was going to say, but no matter how many times I played it out in my head, I couldn't seem to get the words right. What do you say when the person you trusted most in the world has betrayed you? What do you say when everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie? She walked through the door, looking tired, but with that same forced smile plastered on her face. She didn't even seem to notice how tense the air was, how thick the silence had become. Maybe she thought she could just slip back in, act like nothing happened. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not this time. Hey, Kyle, she said, setting her bag down on the counter and walking over to the kitchen. I was thinking we could talk later, you know? After work, maybe? I'm still a little tired. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her, feeling the pressure build in my chest. She was acting like everything was fine, like we could just pretend that nothing had changed. But the truth was already spilling out, and I wasn't about to let her pretend anymore. I think we need to talk now, Lisa, I said, my voice steady but sharp. Right here, right now. She stopped in her tracks, her shoulders tensing as if she were trying to prepare for something. She turned slowly to face me, but her eyes couldn't meet mine. I could see it, the guilt, the fear. It was all there, if you knew how to look. And I knew how to look. What's going on, Kyle? She asked, her voice wavering. But she still didn't look at me directly. Why are you acting like this? I thought we were past this. Past this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, she was asking why I was acting like this? I stood up slowly, my hands trembling just enough for her to notice. I don't know what's more insulting, Lisa. The fact that you think I wouldn't notice what's going on, or the fact that you think I'd just let you get away with it. You've been lying to me. About Caleb. About everything. Her face froze. For a moment, it looked like she was going to say something, but instead, she just stared at me, as if trying to find the right words. But there were no right words. Not anymore. You don't understand, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I never meant for things to spiral out of control. I shook my head, not believing what I was hearing. You never meant for things to spiral? Are you serious? This isn't some misunderstanding, Lisa. This is you choosing to lie, to hide, to cheat. You've been playing me for a fool, and I can't let that slide anymore. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. She had made her choices, and now she had to deal with the consequences. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice shaking, her eyes pleading for something. Anything, to make this better. It just happened. Caleb, he was there for me when you weren't. You started to pull away. I didn't know what else to do. It's not an excuse, I know, But that's what happened. Her words hit me like a physical blow. You're blaming me? You're blaming me for your choices? She stepped closer, her hand outstretched as if trying to reach me, trying to touch me. But I stepped back. I couldn't touch her, not after everything. I don't even know who you are anymore, Lisa. The woman I married wouldn't have done this. The woman I married wouldn't have betrayed me. She lowered her hand, her face crumbling into tears as she sank into the couch. I wanted to feel sorry for her. I wanted to wrap my arms around her and tell her it was okay, that we could fix this. But I couldn't. I had already given her everything. I had given her my trust, and she had destroyed it. I'm so sorry, Kyle, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't want it to be like this. But Caleb, he's different. He listens to me. He makes me feel like I matter. That was the breaking point. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the realization that she had already moved on emotionally. Caleb wasn't just some random guy. He was someone who had meant something to her. And that hurt more than anything else. I stood there, my body shaking with the weight of everything I had just heard. I can't do this anymore, Lisa. I'm done. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if she thought I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I was done. And deep down, I knew there was no going back. Not after this. I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady now. And I'm not coming back. The silence that followed was deafening. She didn't say anything. She didn't try to stop me. She just sat there, broken, as if the reality of everything had finally caught up to her. I grabbed my keys, heading for the door without looking back. There was nothing left to say. The days after I left were a blur. The pain, the anger, the disbelief, it all hit me in waves. Some days, I felt like I could breathe again, like I was finally free from the suffocating weight of the lie that had been my marriage. Other days, I felt like I had lost everything, like I was standing in a dark room, trying to find the light. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. I stayed at a friend's place for a while, trying to put distance between me and Lisa. I didn't want to talk to her, not yet. I didn't know what I would say. What could I say? She had destroyed everything, and I couldn't just act like it was okay. It wasn't okay. It wasn't even close to okay. But no matter how much I tried to avoid her, no matter how much I convinced myself that I needed space, something kept pulling me back. A nagging feeling, a curiosity about what had really been going on while I was away. It wasn't enough to know she had cheated on me. I needed to understand why. I needed to know everything. It was a Thursday evening when I finally decided to go back. I didn't want to. I didn't want to walk into that apartment, into that life I had left behind. But something inside me told me I needed to. I needed closure, even if it meant facing the truth that I wasn't ready to hear. The apartment door was still locked, but I had a spare key. I let myself in quietly, careful not to disturb anything. The place was exactly how I had left it, except for the emptiness that now lingered in the air. There was no Lisa waiting for me, no sounds of her laughter, no warmth. It felt colder somehow, like a house that had lost its soul. I walked into the living room, my eyes scanning the space. That's when I saw it. Her phone. The one she had left behind the night I confronted her. I didn't want to touch it. I knew it was wrong, but a part of me couldn't stop myself. I picked it up, my heart racing in my chest. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just the truth. The truth about what had really been happening behind my back. I unlocked the phone. The screen flashed to life, and the first thing I saw made my stomach twist. A text message from Caleb, sent just hours before. The words were simple, but they struck me like a bolt of lightning. Can't wait for tonight. I miss you. My blood ran cold. I miss you. The words felt like a slap in the face. They were words that weren't meant for me. They were words meant for someone else. Someone who wasn't me. I scrolled through the rest of the messages, my hands trembling. There was nothing explicit, nothing that would have been an obvious smoking gun. But the tone of their conversation, it was intimate. Too intimate. They talked about their plans, their dates, the moments they shared when I wasn't around. They talked like they were together. And I wasn't in the picture. Not anymore. But it wasn't just the text messages. There were photos. A few, scattered throughout the conversations. I couldn't bring myself to look at them, but I knew what they were. And somehow, seeing those photos felt worse than the messages. The thought that they had shared those private moments without me, behind my back, it crushed me. I closed the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. I stood there, staring at the phone, unable to move. I wanted to throw it across the room. I wanted to scream. But instead, I took a deep breath and set it back on the counter. The truth had already hit me like a freight train. There was no turning back from this. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stand being in this apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a life that no longer existed. I grabbed my things, some clothes, my laptop, a few personal items, and headed for the door. But just before I left, I saw something else. A letter. It was tucked into the side of the couch cushions, barely noticeable. At first, I thought it was nothing, just a random piece of paper that had gotten lost. But then I saw the handwriting. It was Lisa's. I pulled it out and read it, my hands shaking as I did. Kyle, I know I've hurt you more than you can imagine. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to us. I don't know what happened to me. But Caleb makes me feel seen. He makes me feel heard. And I didn't know how to tell you that I was slipping away from you. I didn't know how to tell you that I needed something else. Please understand. I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know how to fix it anymore. The letter was simple. Too simple. It was her confession, her apology, but it didn't feel like enough. It didn't change anything. It didn't fix what she had done. The words felt empty now, like a hollow attempt to justify something that couldn't be justified. I stood there, staring at the letter, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. Lisa's words meant nothing now. What had been between us was broken, and no amount of apologies could fix it. I folded the letter and stuffed it into my pocket, walking out of the apartment and into the unknown. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be her second choice anymore, and I wasn't going to be the man she could take for granted. I didn't know what the future held, but I did know this. I was done being the man who was always waiting. The man who was always there when she needed him, but never the one she truly wanted. The man who had been blind to her lies. That man was gone, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a chance to rebuild. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Lisa, her face, her smile, the way she used to look at me before everything started to crumble. It felt like I was drowning in memories of a life I no longer recognized. I didn't want to think about it, but I couldn't help myself. I was left in this limbo of confusion and hurt, like someone who had lost their way but didn't know how to find the path back. I didn't want to go back to the apartment. I didn't want to face Lisa or the mess we had become. But every time I tried to distract myself, I found myself thinking about her again. About Caleb. About what had happened and what was still left unsaid. I needed closure. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. And, more importantly, I needed to decide what came next. I couldn't keep avoiding her forever. As much as I hated the idea, I knew I had to face it. I had to confront the situation head-on and make a choice. I couldn't stay stuck in the past, replaying the same events over and over in my mind. I had to make a decision about the future. It was a Sunday afternoon when I finally returned to the apartment. I didn't know what I expected to find, but the moment I walked through the door, I knew something had changed. The air was thick with tension, and the silence felt heavy, like a storm was brewing just beneath the surface. Lisa wasn't home. I expected her to be, but she wasn't. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The emptiness in the apartment didn't feel as suffocating now that she wasn't there, but at the same time, it left me feeling even more lost. I couldn't figure out if I wanted to face her or if I wanted to run. I sat on the couch, my mind racing. It wasn't just about her betrayal anymore. It was about everything. Our entire relationship, the years we had spent together. I thought I knew her. I thought I understood the woman I had married. But now, I felt like I was seeing her for the first time, and everything about her felt foreign. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa. Kyle, please. We need to talk. I know I've hurt you, and I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry. I've made mistakes. I need you to understand that. The message was simple. Too simple. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep my distance and move on with my life. But another part of me, the part that was still holding on to something, some piece of the life we had before, wanted to respond. I wasn't sure if it was for closure or for something else entirely. I sat there for a long time, staring at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, unsure of what to type. What could I say? What could I possibly say that would fix what she had done? Could anything fix it? After a few minutes, I typed a response. I'll be here when you get home. We need to talk. I sent it before I could change my mind. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew there was no happy ending to this story, no neat resolution. But I also knew that I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I couldn't keep living in this state of denial. It was time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. When Lisa came home, I could tell right away that she was nervous. Her movements were shaky, her eyes darting around as if she was trying to find something to say, something that could bridge the gap between us. But she knew. She knew there was no easy fix. She stood in front of me, her face pale, her lips trembling. "Kyle, she began, but the words got caught in her throat. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Don't. Just don't. I can't keep hearing apologies that don't mean anything. You don't get to just say you're sorry and expect everything to be fine again. You can't erase what you've done." Her face twisted with pain, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to let her off easy. Not after everything. "You think I haven't seen it? You think I didn't notice how distant you were? How you started looking at him the way you used to look at me? How you became someone else entirely when Caleb came around? I wasn't stupid, Lisa. I wasn't blind. And you've made it clear that I was never enough for you. That you needed something more. Someone else." The words were harsh, and I could see it hurt her. But it wasn't for her benefit that I said it. It was for me. I needed to say it. I needed to get it out. I needed to stop pretending. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I swear, Kyle, I didn't. He made me feel something I didn't even know I was missing." I shook my head. "That's the problem, Lisa. You're always looking for something more. And I'm not enough. Not anymore." She started to cry, her shoulders shaking, and for a moment, I felt the familiar tug of sympathy. But I pushed it down. She didn't deserve my sympathy anymore. Not after what she had done. "I'm leaving," I said quietly, my voice final. "I can't do this. I can't stay here, pretending like nothing happened. I need to move on. I need to find something else. Something real." She reached out to me, but I stepped back, the distance between us growing wider with each passing second. "No, Kyle," she pleaded. "Please don't go. I'll do anything. I can change. We can fix this. We can." I cut her off, my heart hardening with every word she spoke. "I don't want to fix it. I'm done." I turned and walked out of the apartment, the door closing behind me with a finality that echoed through the empty space. This was the end. There was no going back. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to waste another minute in a life that wasn't mine anymore. The days after I left the apartment were a blur of confusion and raw emotion. I had told myself I would be fine, that walking away would give me the peace I desperately needed. But instead, I felt like I was walking through fog, unsure of which direction to go, weighed down by 1,000 questions I didn't have answers to. I had walked away from Lisa, from a marriage that had once felt so solid, but now I was left with nothing but a bitter emptiness. I spent the first few nights crashing at a friend's place, but after a while, I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't keep living like I was in limbo. I needed to get away. I needed space, somewhere to think, to clear my mind. So, I packed up a few things and rented a small cabin up in the mountains. It wasn't much, but it was far enough from everything that I could breathe without constantly feeling the weight of the past pressing down on me. The silence of the cabin was both comforting and unsettling. I had no distractions, no people around to tell me what to do or what to feel. It was just me and the quiet, which at first felt like freedom, but quickly turned into isolation. Every night, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of my own heartbeat louder than the wind outside. Every thought led back to Lisa, to Caleb, to everything I had left behind. I thought I had figured it out. I thought walking away would bring me clarity. But instead, I was more lost than ever. The truth was, no matter how much I wanted to forget her, I couldn't. The hurt, the betrayal, it was still there, gnawing at me, even in the solitude of the mountains. And I realized something that I hadn't wanted to admit. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. That's when the phone call came. It was a Friday evening, the sun setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the floor of the cabin. My phone buzzed on the table, and when I looked down at the screen, I saw her name. Lisa. For a moment, I just stared at it, frozen. I had been avoiding this moment for days, telling myself I was better off without hearing her voice. But I knew I couldn't keep running forever. I answered the phone, my hand trembling slightly as I brought it to my ear. "Kyle?" Lisa's voice came through the line, shaky and uncertain. It was the first time I had heard her voice in days, and it hit me harder than I expected. I know you're angry with me. I understand why you left, but I can't keep pretending that this is the end. Please, just hear me out. Her words struck me like a punch in the stomach. The vulnerability in her voice was unmistakable, but it didn't change the fact that she had betrayed me, that she had hurt me in a way that I wasn't sure could ever be fixed. But still, part of me wanted to hear her out. Part of me wanted to believe that this could be repaired, that maybe, just maybe, I had been wrong about everything. I don't know if I can, Lisa, I said, my voice quieter than I intended. You hurt me. You lied to me. And that's not something I can just forget. It's not something I can just move past. I know, she said softly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But Kyle, I'm sorry. I've never been so lost in my life. I don't know what happened. Caleb, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have let it go as far as it did. I should have been honest with you, and I wasn't. I failed you. Her words seemed genuine, and I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe that she hadn't meant for this to happen. But I couldn't ignore the reality of what had transpired. She had chosen someone else. She had turned her back on everything we had worked for. And no apology, no matter how heartfelt, could undo that. I don't know if I can trust you again, Lisa, I replied, the words coming out more painfully than I expected. It's not just about what happened with Caleb. It's about everything. The lies, the distance, the way we just fell apart. I don't know if I can go back to that. I don't know if I can go back to us. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, hear the weight of my words sinking in. Kyle, I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I know I've lost that, but I'm asking for a chance. A real chance to make this right. I know I don't deserve it, but please, just give me a chance to prove that I can change. That I can be the woman you thought I was. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Part of me wanted to say yes. Part of me wanted to walk back into the life we had, to find a way to forgive her. But another part of me, the part that had been hurt too deeply, couldn't let it go. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again, and I didn't know if I even wanted to try. I don't know what to say, Lisa, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I need time. I need to figure out who I am without you in my life. And I need to figure out what I want. I can't promise anything. I'm not ready for that. I understand, she said, her voice breaking. I'll wait. If that's what it takes, I'll wait. I'm so sorry, Kyle. Please remember that I love you. I didn't say anything in response. I didn't know what to say. Instead, I just hung up the phone and sat there in silence, letting her words echo in my mind. The weight of them settled deep in my chest, but it didn't bring relief. It just made everything harder. The next few days felt like a haze. I couldn't shake the memory of Lisa's voice, the way she had pleaded with me, asking for a chance to fix what she had broken. And for a moment, I wondered if I was making a mistake by walking away. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. And maybe, just maybe, I needed to let her go, for good. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the past. It was time to start over, even if it meant doing it alone. It wasn't easy, moving forward. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, doubt, and introspection. I spent more time alone than I ever had before, figuring out who I really was without the shadow of my past hanging over me. Lisa's words haunted me in the quiet moments, but in the end, I knew I needed to heal. Not for her, not for Caleb, but for me. There were days when I missed the life we had. I missed the simplicity of our shared mornings, the routine of coming home to her. I missed the laughter, the small moments of joy we used to share. But I also realized something important. I couldn't keep holding on to something that was gone. The woman I had married wasn't the woman standing in front of me anymore. And it was time for me to let go, for my own peace of mind. One day, I woke up and realized I wasn't angry anymore. The hurt was still there, lingering beneath the surface, but the anger, the resentment, had faded. I wasn't bitter anymore. I had come to terms with everything, accepted that what happened couldn't be undone, and decided to move forward. There was a whole world out there, full of possibilities I hadn't even considered before. I enrolled in a photography class, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I started taking weekend trips, exploring places I had never seen, meeting people I never would have met if I hadn't stepped outside my comfort zone. Slowly, I began to rebuild the pieces of my life that had been left behind. Months passed, and as the seasons changed, so did I. I felt myself growing stronger, more confident. I realized that my happiness wasn't dependent on someone else. It wasn't about a past I couldn't change. It was about the present and the future, and I was finally ready to embrace it. One afternoon, I sat on a park bench, the sun casting a warm glow over the grass. I had my camera in hand, capturing the beauty of the moment. I watched as people passed by, some lost in their own thoughts, others laughing with friends. And I smiled, knowing that I was no longer lost. I had found my way again. I wasn't perfect, and I didn't have all the answers. But I was content. I had learned the hard way that sometimes you need to break apart before you can truly rebuild. A few days later, I received a message from Lisa. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't an apology or a plea for us to try again. It was a simple message. I'm proud of you, Kyle. I hope you find what you're looking for. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and I hope you can be happy. I didn't know what to say to that. But for the first time, I didn't feel the weight of her words pulling me back. I didn't feel anger or resentment. I just felt relief. Relief that I had come this far, that I had moved on, that I had finally found peace within myself. I didn't reply to the message right away. Instead, I closed my phone and looked around the park, taking in the sights and sounds, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the life I was building. I didn't need to go back to what had been. I had something better now, the freedom to create my own future, without the chains of the past holding me back. And so, I walked away from the park that day, knowing that I had chosen my path. I had chosen happiness, independence, and strength. I had chosen to move forward, one step at a time. Because the truth was, the best part of the journey was still ahead of me. And as I stepped into the future, I finally realized the most important relationship I would ever have was the one with myself.